All right, so today, I don't know if you guys have seen the Zoom flyer, but we're talking about the ahistorical defense of the N-word. And before we get started, Tatiana had a few things that she wanted to bring up to you guys. We actually have most of the people that normally come, so it's a good time to bring up these things because you guys are the ones that we want the opinion of anyways, because most of you guys consistently come. So Tatiana, you could go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tatiana. So me and Renese have been brainstorming some ideas to get the word out for these Zoom sessions because we definitely want these to pop off at some point. And I thought that maybe we could do little pins, and I'll show you. So this is what it would look like. It wouldn't look exactly like this. Oh, the glare is just, it wouldn't look exactly like this, but it would have the speak your truth and, you know, a symbol for coming together and whatnot. And it's small, it's not like gigantic or anything, like, you know, just a little pin. You could put it on like your book bag or like a purse or a jacket or your clothes or something, just to get the word out, so people will be like, you know, what's that? Oh, it's this. And I can send, I'll put the link in the chat, but they're only like $3. So maybe if you guys wanted to, I don't know how we would do the payment, but we could figure it out if that is something you guys want to do. You can also pass them out at school or like at your job or something like that, just to help spread the word, because I know like we post it online all the time, but it just doesn't pick up as much as we would like to. So if that is something you guys would be interested in, please like let me know on our Instagram. And then I also wanted to bring up, aside from these Zooms, there's also, and I know not everyone has a Twitter, but get a Twitter, because there's these little spaces, they call them, where you can, oh my gosh, this is like a horrible glare, I'm so sorry, but there's little like chat rooms and anyone can join. And so if I were to create a space right now for Speak Your Truth, all of my followers would get a notification about it and they could join in if they want to. I have seen recently there was a discussion about mixed people being Black or not. Apparently we aren't. Whole different conversation for a whole different other time, but you know, that's what the topic was about, and there was like hundreds of people in there. So we could do that as an option as well. If everyone either has a Twitter or wanted to make a Twitter, also let us know at our Instagram. And I will put that in the chat as well in case people, you know, forget or just don't know right off the top of their head. But yes, these are just some ways that we could get people more involved if they maybe don't have Zoom or don't want to download it, or, you know, whatever. Yeah, these are just, you know, other options. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like the buttons would be a really good idea too, because that's something simple that everyone could do. But if you guys would like to see like either of those options, could you like leave me a private message, or you could speak up right now if you even have like different ideas or anything. I did pass out flyers at my school and that seemed to help this time. So I'm gonna start doing that more often too to get the word out. But yeah, if you guys could send a private message, or you could speak out right now if you think that's a good idea. I don't have a Twitter either, but I want to play around with it and like see if that is something you guys want to do, then I'll definitely play around with it and figure it out. So yeah, what are you guys thinking on that? Anybody? Oh, I think I got a chat. Oh, that's Tatiana. What just happened? Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, my computer just did something really weird. Okay, so if you guys are good with that topic, then we can get started with the actual conversation for today. So the point of these Zooms, at first I did them like just for Black youth to be able to vent about everything that was going on, because like obviously 2020 was like a lot, and I felt just like helpless in 2020 seeing everything that was happening in my community. So I was like, what's a way that like we can all get together and like check on each other and like get stuff out that we don't feel like safe talking about a lot of the times in a lot of spaces. So that's how this started. But I feel like it's kind of grown to like be like an educational tool too now, because a lot of people that come into these chats are like non-people of color. So like it kind of grew to be also like an educational tool too, while like also still venting. Like everybody always still feels safe to like talk about everything going on, because a lot of the time I feel like it helps to just walk in other people's shoes for a little bit. So like that's why I really wanted to start it, and I felt like it was a good way to do like a small way of activism for now until I can start like my career where I want to like do this often and stuff. And by the way, I did just apply to my first law school, so hopefully I can start my career off soon. But yeah, this was just like an easy way that I could take action now and also like get everybody else involved too that I know was feeling overwhelmed. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. And I hope today we actually have like a pretty good crowd. I hope we keep having this crowd and like these talks, because they're really important to me, and I always get a lot off my chest. Like I said, this and like Black Student Union is where I can always just get everything out and like vent about everything going on, because especially now where I live, a lot more happens. So yeah, I'm really glad that we have this safe space. So yeah, during this conversation, just make sure you guys remember this is a safe space. We don't have to feel bad about saying anything here. And Dr. O, he's my African Studies professor, and he's the one that's going to be like leading this discussion today. I wanted him to talk because I read his article on the ahistorical defense of the N-word, and I found it really, really educational, because we had already talked about the N-word here in this group, but I feel like we weren't coming from like a very educated place. So this is a way to actually like get some education behind it, so we're saying the right things, you know, and being like historically correct and accurate and everything. So yeah, Dr. O, if you're ready, you could take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Rainice. Very glad to be here. I do want to give a disclaimer. I am a professor at Eastern Washington University, but I'm not representing them today. This is a personal representation myself. So, you know, Rainice asked me about doing this, and I was very happy to do so. So I'm not representing the school today. These are some personal issues. The second one is I got a really bad cold, so I don't normally sound like this, or I feel like I got beat up by like 3 or 4 elephants with these bags on my eyes, but you know, I'm still here. I didn't want to cancel, and we'll definitely do the best we can. I don't want this to turn into a lecture. I don't want it to turn into that. So really what I wanted to do was I wanted to find out people's personal views on, if people could take a couple of minutes. I just want to hear what people have to say, because you said you already talked about it before, and I'm interested in what people would have to say. You know, if and be honest. You know, I want to hear honesty. If you think that it's okay for African Americans and so-called Black people to say it, then hey, you know, you say it. If you think it's okay for your friends to say it, you know, I just want to hear what you have to say, and also a distinction between ending it in ER versus A. I want to hear that as well. So if including you, I would say, Rainice, before you actually got to the article, I'm just curious to see, you know, what your view was, you know, about this. I'll put myself on mute. And if everybody could just go around, I'm just curious to see what y'all have to say. If you're comfortable talking, if not, then that's fine.
I could start, and then Tatiana, if you want to go, and then we could just take it from there, whoever else wants to jump in. So when we were talking about it before, I feel like I was coming from a like just like kind of an ignorant place, I guess, just saying the argument that I heard a lot of Black people saying, which was like, oh, like we're reclaiming it, this and that. So that's how I felt before reading your article. I felt like, oh, it's fine if Black people say it because they're reclaiming it, because after hearing that argument, it made sense to me. But yeah, obviously now I'm glad that I read your article, but that's how I felt at first. So Tatiana, how did you feel about it?
So personally, I haven't read the article, so I don't know what she's talking about, but I'm very interested on hearing what you have to say. But I do say it, my husband says it, his whole family says it. It's kind of just something, my family doesn't say it, but his family does. So I didn't grow up with it, but like when I met him, I started saying it a lot more just because it's kind of what they did, and they're half Black and they've got a lot of colors in them as well. But my mother, who is half Irish, half Mexican, she does not think that anyone should say the word regardless of who you are or where you're from or anything like that. So she's definitely on the side of, I'm assuming, where your article was going. And I'm, again, very interested. We both are. She's here. She doesn't want to be on camera, but we're very interested in hearing what you and what everyone else will have to say too after we, because you're right. It was kind of more opinions than, you know, education, honestly. So it'll be very interesting where this Zoom goes tonight.
And I think for all of us on the Zoom too, it was like everyone was saying with the A, by the way, Dr.O, like nobody was saying the ER was ever okay. But I do know my cousin, she's not here today. She was saying she didn't feel harm from the word. And then other people were again saying that reclaiming thing. But how about anybody else on the Zoom? Does anybody else want to speak up? Like maybe Z by chance?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I also read his article because I did take one of his classes. But just growing up, I grew up really pro-Black. And so I feel like in my household, it wasn't something that we could never say. But then like going to school was just so regular. And so then it got into my vocabulary. So when I went home, it wasn't said, but when I went out, it was said because I grew up around mostly Black folks. But still now I still try not to say it. I do not want to say it. I even hate when people who are of color say it to me because it just makes me feel some type of way. It just makes me feel like, I don't know, it's derogatory no matter what you're trying to say, like brother, homie, and it just like makes me feel some type of way. I'm trying to stop saying it right now, but like I said, it's just so into my vocabulary. Sometimes it just comes out if I'm like around a certain type of people, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? And I'm not looking, I want actual people's opinions. I'm not looking for people to come with educated something. So I appreciate you speaking up, Tatiana, because that's what I actually wanted to know. Because that's what people usually do. They usually enter this discussion, you know, based on their opinion. So that's what I want to get out of people. So anybody else want to give their opinion?
I'm Serenity. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. My name's Serenity. My opinion on it, I don't think it should be used, but I think I can, like hearing what everybody else is saying, it's kind of something that's used a lot, especially with young people today. And I go to Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, an HBCU, and it's definitely like, if you're trying not to say it, it's going to be very hard because you're around everybody that goes to school here, and it's used very frequently. And even though I've heard a lot of teachers, we have conversations about that, and just the, like Renice was saying, like the reclaiming and stuff like that, and how it doesn't really work that way. But yeah, something I've tried to get out of my vocabulary too. It's just a little bit hard when you go outside and sit all the time. But yeah, I understand the repercussions of it and the consequences.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, so this is Tiffany. I'm Renice's mom. Growing up for me, my uncles, my dad, all the men in the family used it. But the women never used it. And I personally, I think maybe I used it a little bit like in high school when I started running around with different people and it was being used all the time. So then I was using it, but in my household, I never used it with my kids. They never heard me say it. And there were a few times where my uncle or my cousins, again, the males in the family, it's never been the females in my family, were using it towards the kids. And they actually, because they never heard me say it, were very uncomfortable. And so I've never really felt like it was something that I wanted to say or should be said, but I've never felt like if I heard my Black family members or my Black friends using it with the A, that it was a problem, because I also grew up with the understanding that they were reclaiming the word, and it was how they were talking about people that they cared about, their best friends, their brothers, cousins, and uncles.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true too. I was gonna say, I always heard my dad saying it, honestly, like a lot. Like he'd be playing the game and he would be saying it and stuff. And I just came from my grandma's today, and she was saying how she feels like that word still carries a lot of trauma with her because she grew up in a time where like it was used really, really negatively towards her. So she still gets like a sick feeling about it too. So it definitely still has like negative attachment, I feel like either way. But yeah, anybody else?
I just wanted to go off of what Renee said about her grandma. It's kind of similar to my grandpa. He said like he grew up in that era where it was just a negative term no matter what. So he feels like reclaiming a word that it was used to be derogatory towards him and still today doesn't really make sense to him.
Anybody say anything? Okay. I have a personal history with the word myself. Living in South Carolina, that was something that we were called a lot by whites down there. I finished my senior year in Kentucky, and for that year, we got called niggers quite a bit at a school that had 3 Black students before my brother and I got there. And I remember the principal told my brother and I that we shouldn't be upset if we get called a nigger because by the other students, because he wore glasses when he was in school, and they used to call him Four Eyes. So it was just another word, is what he said. So when I was in elementary school, I think the 6th grade or 7th grade, maybe middle school, there was a guy that used to sit behind me who was a senior in high school, a white guy. And we weren't supposed to mix on buses, but we were so far out that they ended up putting upperclassmen, people in 9th grade to 12th grade with lowerclassmen. And this guy used to sit behind me on the bus every day, and he would take his finger and he would poke me in the back of the head all the way to school. About a 45-minute drive, and he would call me a nigger the whole time. And he would say all kind of stuff to me. And here I was, just a little 6th grader, and you got somebody that's a senior. I did end up getting into a fight, facing 5 to 10 years in prison because I beat somebody up who did call me that. And I went through a lot of trauma over that experience myself, having to go to a grand jury and having to go to court 9 times over 2 years and facing that in an all-white town. I felt like I was living back in the 1920s and 1930s. So I have a personal history with that word, but I had to set that aside. Because my personal history, regardless, is not the same thing as trying to find out what is going on, with that word itself, So what I've noticed is I wasn't aware that there were African Americans who were telling people who are not African Americans that they could actually say nigga until I got here. And I actually had a student I was talking to, a white guy I was talking to casually, and he has become so accustomed to using the word that he actually said it when he was talking to me about class. And we've had some incidents up here, on campus, because it's become confusing for people who are not Black, because they got some people who are saying that they can say it, and then you got other people who don't approve it, and it gets confusing. So there was a brother from Africa up here who told a Latinx friend of his that he could say nigga. Now this almost sounds like a Dave Chappelle story. I mean, like a comedy skit, because it doesn't make any sense. So you got a brother from Africa, the birthplace of humanity, telling a Latinx student that he could say it. And then he said it around some Black females and he got checked. So in order to try to conceal saying it, he started saying Monica. So I walked into work one day and one of my coworkers said, "Hey, O, did you hear about Monica?" I said, "Who is Monica?" They said, "You don't know Monica?" I said, "No, what is Monica?" He said, "My nigga, my nigga." I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, that's what the students were saying. The ones who got checked, they were so committed to using this word to call each other in public, they recognized that there were some places that I call unsafe spaces where Black people don't approve of that. And they started calling each other monikers just to say my nigga. That's how. So you have one group that's historically oppressed, Latinx, people from Africa, certainly been oppressed. And then both of them in America using a word that we were labeled with. That's why I said Dave Chappelle couldn't even come up with something that creative. So that was very interesting. So that's what led me to do the research about that. So why do y'all think, I'm just curious because this seems to be a regional thing. Why do y'all think that is something that happens here? Why do you think that you have some Black students who are telling other people they can say it? Because you saying it yourself, that's an in-group thing. That to me can be another discussion. I'm just talking about telling other people. And now you have students from Saudi Arabia, you have white students, there's students here on the golf team, tennis team, girl basketball team. They all using this word. It's so bad that we have been called into elementary schools in Cheney and in Spokane, middle schools in Cheney and in Spokane, high schools, because the students are yelling at each other down the hallway. Instead of saying person's friend, their name, they saying it in front of the teachers. They're saying it in front of the principals. That's how they talk. That's how they relate to each other. They're not just saying friend, or we used to say homeboy, or what's up? That's my brother there, my bro. Everybody's saying nigga. So what do y'all think is going on?
If you guys know how, you could use the little hand raising thingy if you don't want to speak out, but you're always welcome to speak out too.
Yeah. This isn't class, This is discussion.
I
see what y'all have to say.
I think one of the arguments, because I hear this a lot, especially with like Hispanic people or Latinx or Pacific Islanders, they say that, oh, they're not white to white, they're a person of color, so it's okay for them to say it, which is kind of weird because they're just not Black in general. So I don't get why it's still okay for them to say it. Or another excuse is like Hispanic and Pacific Islander people or Asian people or just people in color in general grew up in the hood. And so like now it's a hood term and a hood thing. So it's okay for them to say it.
Okay.
I've also heard the argument that's like Hispanics have said they were called the N-word at times. So they feel like it's okay. Like they were called the brown N-word or something like that. So I've heard, because I went to like a predominantly Hispanic high school, that's what they would always say to me when I would like try to check them on it.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of times where people don't check them on it and they just go along with it because it's more uncomfortable to have the conversation and have conflict for many people than it is to just, it's more comfortable to just let it slide and be like, well, they don't really mean anything by it, or I'm just not going to address it. And then it just spreads like it's okay because nobody's telling them it's not okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, what is the two things? What's the brown N-word? Is it the
That's
B?
what Hispanics always use as like defense. They said they were called that like in the fields and stuff like that when they were working too. That's like what I've heard from the Hispanic community a lot. From Mariner, that's what they always would say because Mariner, they be saying it every sentence.
Yeah, Mariner's notorious for that. My other thing though is I do agree with what Tiffany said because it is awkward having that conversation, especially when so for me, at my job, and I'm not gonna, obviously on the internet, I'm not gonna give the specifics, but like if she were to ever watch this, like, girl, I'm sorry. But my manager, she is Latina and her boyfriend is Black and they have the cutest little girl. She's mixed. But my manager, says the N-word. And I feel like she says it with me because obviously, you know, I'm Black, and we kind of just have like conversations, like we're super comfortable with each other. But like when she first said it, I was, you know, a little taken aback because I don't know, I just didn't expect her to say it. And then she did, and I was like, okay. But I didn't say anything about it because like I don't want to start drama at my job, and then I don't want her to feel some type of way, and then I don't want to like get my hours cut because now we're beefing or something like that. Like what is a good way to like tell people like don't do that, you know?
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I guess it's there's a personal way, and then of course there's going to be a way that you can do it through your job, you know. So I don't know how you want to handle that. Sometimes getting people involved with job, dealing with rules and policies and stuff, sometimes that can work, but sometimes you can handle that in a personal way and it can work. So that's something you'll have to make a decision about. Sorry to hear that. Anybody else? Let me share some. Somebody's gonna say something?
Yeah, we were. My apologies. Before
Oh,
we
no,
here,
okay.
I don't know if you guys did introductions, but my name is Ajala. I'm a sophomore at Eastern right now, and then I brought my wonderful grandmother.
Hey,
If you wanted to say something, I'll say something.
Let's see that.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I do I'm very interested in this conversation you're having. What I would like to say really, truly is two things. Number one, Tati, what is it?
Tatiana.
Tatiana, I apologize.
It's okay.
What I would like to say to you personally is never give up your power. Never allow anybody to put you in a position where you feel like you cannot be open and be authentic and be honest. You should not have to fear being retaliated against if you speak to somebody and say, I find what you say offensive. You should be able to say that. So my hope for you is that you actually, I don't care how close you guys are, but you have that conversation with her. And then the other thing I like to say is, for me personally, I feel like we as Black people, and I don't care whoever else it is, we shouldn't be even referring to each other as niggas, period. We all have a name, and we all have been given a name for a purpose, right? You know, why not be, you're my sister? Why not it be, you're my brother? Why not it be, hey, this is my joint, you know what I mean? This is my side, this is my middle. The reality is we do not have to reference each other as niggas. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you. I also want to add on to her point too, as well as like my phone infinite children. But like at least like to speak towards Mr. How do you say your last name? I know it's so curious that
Zombie. Yeah.
Mr. or is it doctor or anything?
I'm a professor. You ain't got to worry about that though.
I'll make sure. But to speak back to your question, I mean to answer your question, like at least to speak on the region part, I also think that it's less to do about the conversation and more about just like the conflict in general. Because like to give you background, I'm from Seattle, like the city of Seattle. I'm from West Seattle, to be more specific, which is like pretty diverse. And then so like there's like Black people up here in the neighborhood I grew up in. Yeah, there's Black people, but at the same time, it's like there's not a lot of Black people up here. And it's a lot harder to have those conversations and actually create action behind the conversations as well. Then on top of it, with me, it's like, I'm always going to have a conversation. I don't care who you are. You know, you can be like Obama for all I care. Like, I'm still open to have a conversation and I'm going to be who I am. But at the same time, like when we get into, for example, up in Seattle, I know Seattle's culture is very different from South Carolina. I know South Carolina is rough. And Seattle's, not nearly as rough as South Carolina, not even in the same way, but the gang culture is very real up here. And then so when you get into the politics of these Samoans and these polys and these other BIPOC students, I mean, not students, but other BIPOC people saying the N-word, oftentimes we're just outnumbered. And then it's like, we can have the conversation, but at the end of the day, like, if I'm talking to a USO Crip or if I'm talking to so-and-so, I'm not finna be hecka confrontational with this person when I know they have all this backing them. That's just to speak on that part in terms of reaching. And then also to add on to just using the N-word in general, I just feel like we just need to make a conscious decision as Black people to either use it and accept it for everybody to use it or just not to use it. There's no in between and there's no like discretion for it. Like me personally, I don't think we should refer to each other as niggas. Like we have certain words, like up in Seattle, we say cutty. Like, I mean, we still say my nigga or like nigga and stuff, but like when we refer to another person, we say cutty. So like, there's always like alternative terms of endearment.
Okay, thank you. Thank
I
you
think
both.
Z had something to say too.
Yeah.
No, I was getting a little like claps because I'm from the same place. Well, I'm from South Seattle, not West Seattle. And it's so true. Like we're outnumbered. And when we do confront them, it's always like they want to fight or they get so defensive and like, no, I just want to educate you. I just want to talk about the word. And so like sometimes like we just got to leave it alone because I'm not trying to get beat up or I'm not trying to fight because that's not my initial thought. It was just to educate them.
Okay. Well, yeah, approaching someone directly about something like that, when you find yourself in a situation where you're outnumbered or vulnerable, that's definitely a tough situation to be in. I was just wondering in general, like what was going on out here. People who leave prison 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, one of the biggest struggles that they have when they leave is the number. People don't call them by their names, they call them by the number. And the number serves as their identity. And that's how they're referred to. Their struggle with that number once they leave is because that number itself it ties them to the trauma that they went through in prison. Some of them joke around about it and that's how they cope with it. Other ones don't like to hear the numbers at all. Some of them say that they have dreams about the number. And it's very problematic. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look at this discussion, not so much on a personal level, but to provide a larger context for this discussion. Because to me, all of these personal decisions that we're making is what I expect when people are not educated about their past and their history. So to me, this is a discussion about our mental health. That's really what it's about. Collectively as a group, no one showed up in the fields to provide us any kind of mental health, any type of help, any type of support. There were no psychologists going around when we were going through that trauma at all. And the more traumatic something is, the more that it's going to stick to you. So this word, the history of this word, the history behind it, there's such a strong diabolical evil history behind it that yes, it seems like the more potent that a word is, the more it's going to be something that we carry with us. So I don't expect this conversation that I'm having right now to start some movement where people are going to stop saying it, because y'all know as well as I do, once a trend sets, it's in, it's going to go. So this to me is just something good for you to reflect on and something to think about. Let me share something with you. There's a myth out there that people in Africa before slavery did not have any culture at all. Europeans brought them culture. We didn't even do something as simple as take care of our hair at all. So that's not true. We had picks, we had combs. We use palm olive oil. We use different things. And there are books written about this. Your hairstyle, your hair texture, not hair texture, hairstyle was really a symbol of your identity. People that did not take care of their hair were looked at as kind of being people who were kind of unkempt. They didn't take care of themselves. They also said that hair was sacred because it was the closest thing to their ancestors and the creator, because it is at the very top of your head. Once we were enslaved, we lost access to what we used to use for our hair. We didn't have the picks. We didn't have the combs. We didn't have the oil. So what did our folks do? All right. We began to use bacon grease, butter, cornmeal, kerosene, coffee, goose grease, axle grease for wagon wheels, lye. We mixed stuff with potatoes to decrease its caustic or burning or acidic effects. We put it in the cloth, warmed it over a fire. We used a butter knife and heated it in a can over the fire just so we could start to change our hair texture. We weren't simply taking care of our hair at that point. What exactly were we doing? We were trying to make our hair look like the very people who were enslaving us, because we were taught that their hair was better. They had all kind of names for our hair. One of them was bullet headed. And if you ever been around Black people, we love to pick at people that have so-called nappy hair, coarse hair. We love doing that. Does anybody know why we have coarse hair? It's got to do with the environment that we're in. Everybody has different hair textures, just like cheetahs and different animals have things. They're built to exist in an environment so that they can progress in their lives. That's not something that, you know, people chose, but the coarse hair texture that many people of African descent had to do with the environment. It's a coil. They said it acts like an air conditioner. Why do Europeans have such long hair? They lived where it was very cold, so they had to have long, straight hair. Those things were things that were picked up along the way that had to do with your adaptation to the environment that you lived in. When you find yourself in an unnatural situation where someone is oppressing you and you don't have access to your own institutions that teach you certain things about yourself, people can confuse you along the way. So what our folks did was we began to use those kind of chemicals and different things in our hair. We now have people that pay $1,000 to $5,000 to have hair weave sewn into their hair. People also have admitted to paying $18,000 a year and over $100,000 since they began doing this. The chemical that we use is called, people call it a relaxer. What it's actually called is sodium hydroxide. Sodium hydroxide is a caustic chemical. I remember watching a documentary, and when the person went in to ask him about sodium hydroxide, it was a white guy that had on his hazmat suit, had the goggles on, who was working with this chemical, because it's poisonous. It's poisonous. Relaxer is poisonous. So he was asking them about the effects of someone who would wear it. And the guy was so shocked. He thought that the person asking the questions was joking. He said, wait a minute, Black women actually put that on their hair? He said, yeah. He said, why would they do something like that? So what he did was he took a can, an aluminum can, he stuck it in sodium hydroxide, and he let it sit there an hour or two or something like that. It melted all of the aluminum away. And all that was left was this very clear plastic film that was around it. And there's also research to show that sodium hydroxide, yeah, there you go. Good hair, Chris Rock, thank you. Sodium hydroxide actually causes fibroid tumors in Black women because of the chemicals that they put in their hair. Now, why did I bring this up? Am I attacking Black women? No, I'm not attacking Black women at all. Why am I bringing this up in the context of having this discussion about this word? If we had our own hairstyles and we had our own ways of taking care of our hair before slavery, and then during slavery, we started doing stuff that was damaging, even using axle grease and kerosene to change the hair texture from the ones that we loved and understood to someone else's, you can say that that is a direct consequence of being oppressed and trying to imitate somebody. The further that you get away from that visible oppression, it becomes a tradition, it becomes a pattern. And once it becomes a pattern and a tradition, you don't question it. And when I bring stuff up like this, I make so many people angry. And I'm like, I'm not angry at you. I'm talking about the process that got us here. I'm not angry at you. Another thing that I want to tie to this, and there's a good book called Hair Story, Untangling the Roots of Black Hair in America, which is where I got some of that information from. Bleaching cream. In West and South Africa, where a 2016 New York Times report said some 70% of women use lightening cream, the world of skin lightening is a multi-billion-dollar industry, following years of billboard ads tagged with ways for women to achieve perfect white skin. Ghana's government banned lightening creams and lotions. However, the country has struggled to remove the products from the shelves. So there are people out here who defend lightening it. What's this sister's name? Her last name is Banks. Let me see her name. Oh, Azalea Banks. She actually defends herself using bleaching cream. She's just saying it's a part of her artistic expression. So when we think about trauma itself, you think about somebody who's going through a car accident or somebody who has been, I'll be very careful because I don't know what people have been through. I'm not trying to be offensive or nothing like that. But, you know, sometimes kids go through things with adults that they don't have no business going through. And that's all I'm going to say. But what a psychologist would tell you is that sometimes those kids begin to repeat the behavior that was done to them. So if they begin to repeat that behavior, and you're not aware of psychology and you don't, or trauma, how trauma impacts people's DNA, their sense of themselves, then when you see a person doing that, you may say to yourself, that person is wrong. Why in the world are they doing that? But the underlying reason why they're doing it is connected back to their oppression. So what we're dealing with is we're dealing with one person in one lifetime. Trauma can impact people in a way to where it can destroy their lives forever. It could be something that happens for 2 minutes, 2 seconds, 2 hours, 2 days, and you could be messed up the rest of your life. So what we have here is we have people in America of African descent. We're not fully accepted in Africa. We're not fully accepted in America. We once had names that we call ourselves. We don't know those names. We're more comfortable now, most of us, with the European names that we have. And because we have not studied ourselves as oppressed people in an attempt to try and resolve some of our issues with identity, we have a lot of confusion. The hair care industry, because of us, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Bleaching cream, billion-dollar industry. Nike. We go out and we buy shoes. We love name brand stuff. Anybody would tell you who is a psychologist that when you see yourself, when you see somebody who is attempting to drape themselves with all of this material stuff, they're trying to get respect from people that they don't feel inside. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to exaggerate their visibility so that other people. So what I have done is I have taught myself to see some of these things in the context of oppression, you know, that we do. So American public schools never were intended to teach us about this stuff. So as far as I'm concerned, what's the difference between Black people going around themselves today calling themselves niggas and not even knowing the history of the word or nothing, just because it ends in an A? We're not supposed to know any better. We're not supposed to. It is a symptom of our trauma. That's exactly what it is. So you see my name, My names are from Central Africa. Do y'all know how many Black people in America make fun of me because of my names? These are some of the same people that call themselves niggas and think it's okay. I know what my names mean. I can tell you what they mean. I'm very proud. We used to have naming ceremonies, is what we used to have. We don't have that anymore. We don't have that anymore. So, I mean, before this is over with, I'm going to explain to you about this A thing, but it's something I find very, you know, oh, let me make this point. Psychologically, you tell me what the difference is. You take a young lady who went through some stuff with a disgusting older man when they were a kid, and this person becomes an adult, and you see them doing things that are kind of similar to what was done to them. How can we look at that instance of someone expressing their trauma and not look at our confusion with how we identify ourselves as niggas as part of that trauma? So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that we call ourselves that. That is a symptom of our oppression. That's how I see it myself. I have to open up that discussion like that. So yeah, we're sick. We're sick. But it's not our fault. It really is. It's not our fault. So of course, there are different ways that we use this word. Sometimes people say, yeah, man, I know I'm just a nigga in America. I know what you're saying when you say that. Yeah, I can identify. I can identify with that. But not everybody uses that word the same way. But this new thing now with just almost like pop culture thing with everybody just saying, you know, niggas, that's not parody. That's not people who are trying to almost like take some of the power out of it. You taking this on as an identity, that to me is something that's different. So rather than redefining yourself, to me, it's a reaction. Now, when you're trying to heal and get better, reaction, of course, is going to be a part of that. But to me, you need to go to definition. You have to define yourself. As human beings, we have to have definitions of who we are as people. So if you're pulling from the culture of trauma to define yourself, hell yeah, you're going to end up confused all the time. You end up doing all types of stuff. So again, I didn't mean to attack anybody about the hair and the light skin. I mean, I could tell you all kinds of stories about me being light-skinned and what I've gone through in my life and what I've experienced living up towards Cincinnati versus South Carolina. You know, we have people that devastate their children based on their skin complexion and how they treat them with this whole idea of good hair, bad hair, you know, light skin, red bone. I mean, all types of stuff. We got all kind of problems, you know, with that, you know, in ourselves. So to me, these are discussions that fall under the context of trauma, and we don't talk about them like that. So regardless of what your personal opinion is about how you use the word, I just ask you to look for a higher source and try to figure this out. Because where you're getting your information from to make these decisions does not necessarily mean that you're true. That what you're saying is correct. Doesn't necessarily mean that. So, are you all really interested in finding out why we ended in an A? Because that to me was fascinating. The first time I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. Did Black people have a meeting or a convention where they said we were going to sit around like, hey, everybody on the 5th Sunday in September, let's have a meeting and we're going to sit around and we're going to discuss how we are going to take the power out of this word nigger and we're going to make it ourselves. So everybody showed up at the meeting and they told people, hey, don't tell the white people, but we're going to take the power out of the word. There must have been some hidden emails, phone calls. It had to be some pigeons. I don't know what. I didn't get it. There was no meeting. There was no, we just say this stuff. We don't know. So let me ask you this. Has anybody ever heard of the movie Mo Better Blues? You might have heard it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Y'all heard of the song called Mo Money, Mo Problems?
Yes.
Mo Money, Mo Problems?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of Black people that say mo instead of more. Give me some more. Give me some more. Where I'm from, that is common speech. It's very common. People would never say shut the door. They would say shut the door. There you go. I saw you, Tatiana. You knew exactly what I was going to say. A lot of people don't say, let me ask you a question. They say, let me ask you a question. Like an axe, like a tool. These are speech patterns that you will find in the South and also in different places throughout America. What a lot of people don't understand is that in the West African languages that we once spoke, almost every word ended in a vowel. And if you have a mother tongue, your first language that you learn, that is going to set the pattern for how you say other languages. So what do y'all think Europeans were teaching us the English language for? They weren't trying to teach us to win poetry contests, Shakespeare. They wanted us to perform tasks. That's what they wanted us to do. So what we did was we took our pro-vowel language that ended in mostly the vowel sound, and we began to use English. We took words like more and ended it with the sound mo, because that is a feature of our own language. In linguistics, they call that linguistic convergence, to bring together the features of your mother tongue, and you apply that, you converge it with the new language that you're picking up. That's why they say it's very difficult to learn new languages as you get older. So if you know anyone that speaks Spanish, I've been told that they don't have sentences or words that start off with the SCH sound. So they will say school. They won't say school, school. And then I heard somebody who was saying weird, and I kept hearing them say weird, but they didn't have the consonant blend of the RD sound. So they just kept ending it with weird. So think about this. When you say the word test, do you emphasize the T at the end? I don't. I always say test. When I say desk, I don't say desk. I say desk. So the S and the K, those are two consonants. In West African languages, we didn't have a consonant blend. So when we say words, we don't say test. We don't say build. We say build. You understand what I'm saying? You don't say desk. You say desk. So this whole thing about us ending nigger in an A, it has to do with the former languages that we spoke. You don't have to be from a continent in order to still have some of those cultural things that you still have as part of you. So we no longer speak the language, but we were taught how to speak the language like our ancestors did, and that's what they did. So when you read slave narratives, it's very difficult to pronounce those words because what you are finding are the West African language patterns. So, you know, a lot of people, when you go to school, they would turn around and say that's improper, and, you know, that's inappropriate. You're not supposed to speak like that. That's non-standard English. So in California, they attempted to deal with what we call Ebonics in school. I know Ebonics has a bad name, bad stigma. That's because they talked to people that didn't know what they were talking about. So in a school in California, they were trying to deal with Ebonics. So once, they call it the Ebonics hysteria. Ebonics is a term they use for how we speak English, going back to the West African stuff. So Ebonics, in California, what they did was they went around and they asked Black preachers what they thought. Black preachers are not linguists, and that is the wrong group of people that you should have asked. They thought that they were going to teach the students Ebonics in school. They were not. They said, you already speak that way because you speak like your mom and dad. We're going to learn, we're going to teach you why you speak that way and for you to learn to respect that. But we also are going to teach you how to speak money English or standard English so you can get a job. So an attempt to appreciate our connection to African culture was just blown away by the media. And then they ended up dropping the whole thing. So when I get around my family in South Carolina, I talk just like they talk. That's how I grew up talking. I don't see that as being something that I'm ashamed of. Many different languages have influenced English. The original use of the word dumb, D-U-M-B, is from Germany, and it was spelled D-U-M-M. That's not something that was created in English, you know. The word fresh comes from Germany. It was spelled different, but now we have that. It has the same meaning. There are many different groups that have made it, but nobody has taught us about our West African languages and how we have incorporated those things into English. So I hate to tell people out there, there was no magical meeting. I didn't miss no emails. No pigeon came my way. We were already talking like that. It has nothing to do with us making a conscious attempt to take the power out of the word. And I'm not saying that we have not made successful attempts to do that at times by saying, yeah, I'm just a nigga in America. I'm not talking about that. But you cannot make the argument. It is ahistorical, meaning it's not based on historical fact at all. You cannot make the argument that by ending it in an A, that we take the power out of the word. That is a lie. We already were talking like that. And that's a part of our West African influence. Even the word mumbo jumbo goes back to the Mandingo. That's not even how they pronounced it. They called it Mumba Gayumba is what they called it. So you got a bunch of people on the ships and they are praying that people will come and intervene because they're on slave ships. They thought that white people were cannibals and were going to eat them. So they were praying out to their ancestors and God, please come help me. So they were chanting that. White people did not know what in the world they were saying. They saying a bunch of mumbo jumbo. If you look mumbo jumbo up today, it says a fake fact that someone says to sound impressive. That is something that comes from the Mandingo. That's another word that we have there that has the word tote is something that comes from Africa. Okra is something that comes from Africa. Sometimes when my uncles are drinking, they call me okra instead of okara. Y'all better not call me that now. Don't mess up. But anyway, so have you ever heard that before? So for the people that claim that, it's not true. You can't just say just because you're in the word in the vowel that you're taking the power out of it. That's our speech pattern that goes back to West Africa. I'm proud of that heritage, but that doesn't change the meaning of the word. Does anybody want to say anything about that before we get into it a little more?
I don't want to say something about it, but I do feel like Dan, what's that book called? You guys know what book I'm talking about by Zora Neale Hurst?
Oh,
it's literally
Barracoon. Not that one?
Not that one. That is one I did read. I was referring to Their Eyes Were Watching Us. I mean, Their Eyes Were Watching God.
Okay.
I'm not sure you guys read that one, but like I feel like my apologies. I feel like when you read that book, like especially if like you're somebody who like either your family doesn't talk like that already, or you're trying to gain a better understanding of like why they talk that way, and I guess like see like more in action, like that's an excellent book to read.
Okay. Mm-hmm. There was actually a book. The book Barracoon was something I used in my my article. Very interesting. Zora Neale Hurston actually interviewed the last known survivor of a slave ship that came illegally into America in 1860. There were two brothers, last name Maher, M-A-H-E-R. They were very wealthy in Alabama. They bet each other, that's the rumor, $1,000, that they could go and kidnap some people from Africa, bring them back here and enslave them. Since 1807, 1808, it was actually illegal to transport blacks in from out of America because outside of America, because after the blacks in Haiti beat the French, whites in America got afraid that that was going to inspire them, is what happened. So what they started doing was they started relying on slave breeding. They shackled us, forced us to be in pens and stuff. The guy, Adam Elliott, had 74 kids is what he had because he said he was just used as a slave breeder. So they started relying on domestic slavery, meaning they started forcing people to have sex with each other because they could not bring people in. That to me is also probably a part of our trauma as well, but I'm not going to take it in that direction right now with some of the stuff we have going on in our communities between males and females, especially. Anyway, so because they outlawed it, They bet each other. So in 1860, there was a ship, this guy named Foster, there was a ship that he had built called the Clotilda. So they paid him to go over there. So he brought back, I think about 110 people of African descent. They came back and they burned the ship. They settled into something that they call Africa Town. And they burned the ship to try to hide it. Then, people found out that they did. And that's the last known ship to have brought people over illegally from Africa. All they did was they just got fined. That's all that happened. They just got fined. So the last known survivor, his last name was Casola. And when Zora Neale Hurston found out that Casola was still living, she went to interview him in, I think, 1925. And if you listen at the way that he talked, when he actually talked, he used the word mo instead of more. Now, this is a brother from the continent of Africa who was brought over, who's speaking English. When he said Lord, he said Lord, the R and the D sound, the consonant blend, just like I told you with build versus build. He did not say that. He did not say that. The Clotilda was discovered, I think, in 2018. So what I did in my study was I actually used the way he spoke as a way of saying, look, here's a brother from Africa who spoke the languages in Africa. And when he spoke English, he sounded just like us. Why did he say Mo? And then I can turn on and watch a movie called Mo Better Blues. I was trying to show a connection is what I was trying to show. So thanks for bringing that up, brother. I appreciate that. Thanks for bringing up Zora Neale Hurston. So anyway, anybody else have anything else they want to say about that? Now I'm curious about this taking the power out of the, yeah, thank you. Their eyes were watching God, Barracoon. I'm curious. So again, let me make this clear, because this is, I definitely want to be very concrete about this. You do not have to be born in a country to still maintain some of the cultural elements. Yes, we live in America. Of course we live in America. Of course we picked up a lot of things here. But there's some things that we do unconsciously as people that we still pass down from person to person. And culture is something that is so strong that you cannot completely wipe it away. You may not be aware of what you're doing. They've made all kinds of connections between things that Blacks in America do and things that people in Africa do. We're just not taught that that's what it is. So did anybody else have anything they wanted to say before we got into, because I wanted to kind of deal with the power of the word itself as to whether or not you can actually take the power out of it.
Really quick,
possible?
I wanted to say the things in the chat. Someone said you can watch a documentary on the Clotilda on Disney or Hulu, which I did not know that, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that either. I didn't know that either. Yeah, thank you. So the word itself, where does it come from? Anybody know? All right, so I found two sources. The Latin word Niger, N-I-G-E-R, which means black. And the French word Niger, which also means black. Depending on which culture influenced you the most, that's where the words come from. Both of those words mean black and dark in color. So if you go back and you look at it, what you will find is that there was a lot of emphasis placed on the skin complexion of people of African descent. The Spanish and the Portuguese were the first to enslave people of African descent, so they were used to it. But when the English got involved, this really became something that was very big. The Spanish, of course, call us negros, which means black, but they shortened it up and made it a negro, which means black in Spanish. Different origins, but the same meaning. We also been taught that the word nigger, because you will hear people say this, they'll say, oh, in the dictionary, it just says, it's just an ignorant person. Anybody can be a nigger. That is not true. Don't ever repeat that. Just because something in the dictionary does not mean that it's true. Please don't do that. Matter of fact, Webster came out and said that they don't know why or why that was in one dictionary that they had, and it was never in any other dictionary. It is not the word that just means that means just an ignorant person at all. So if you go back and look at Niger and Niger, there were many different words that were created from that. Sometimes they just used to call us Nigers, which means black. Sometimes they call us Negers, N-E-G-E-R-S. Sometimes niggers would spell N-E-E-G-E-R-S. Sometimes niggers would spell N-E-A-G-R-S. Sometimes they call us Negars, N-E-G-A-R-S. Nigger is nothing but someone mispronouncing Niger or Niger. That's what it is. So it's not even actually a word that was created on its own. You know, you had all those other words as well. So all of those words mean black, all of them. So if you look at European, if you look at English culture in particular, now we're going to get into the weight of the word, because to me, this discussion is not just about a word. And that's what people try to say. They try to make it seem like it. I always like to challenge my young brothers who like to use this word. All right, so here you got your white friend that you're playing football with. Y'all call each other niggas. He's listening to rap music. He's dressing a little bit different. He's talking a little bit different. Or y'all think y'all cool. Y'all think y'all cool. So what happens when you graduate and you go to apply for a job and they call you in for an interview and your white friend puts his suit on and you put a suit on and you go in and you got your braids? You tell me what you think they're gonna see walking through the door. Who is the only nigga that's left? You, fool, because you don't know. Nigga is not just a word at all. That temporary thing that you can have with your friend at college, I guess, is cute while you're going through it. But because you don't understand the history behind the word, you don't know that that is not just a word. That word is something that is supposed to encapsulate an entire group of people. When did they start saying that people of African descent were inferior, cursed by God, were cannibals? Do y'all know when that started? You may know, Renice. 1400s. It's 2022, so somebody do the math. That's over 500 years of making the same claim. If you go back and study it, all you would do is find out that all that has been done is that they have reinvented the way that it is said, the way that it's shown. If you go back and look at it, we have said to been animals, inferior, thieves. This goes back over 500 years. So the word nigger itself is attached to that. It's not just a word. And then you ask yourself, what is a word? N-I-G-G-E-R. N. There's no such thing as an N. That's something that we call it. Letters are nothing but symbols. That's all they are. So human beings, the way we process information symbolically in our brains. So this word nigger is supposed to represent a symbol of a group of people who people have claimed for more than 500 years are savages, barbarians. So the stuff that you see today and the expectations that people have of us today, that's a long history behind that. Regardless of how you yourself define yourself, you will find, because there have been people that's come over here from Africa who will make the claim, hey, you know, I don't know what y'all talking about. I don't know what y'all complaining about. Stay over here about 5-6 years and see what happens. A lot of those people end up saying, man, we did not know that it was like that over here. You will find yourself in situations where you are treated differently. So if you go back and you look at the words, it was, you know, kids go to school now, they got something they call the timeout seat. They used to have something that they call the nigger seat in white schools where you got in trouble. And when you were misbehaving, that's what they would actually make people go sit in. There's a verb called to niggerize. That is when you relegate someone to a position of very low power or opportunity. They had something called a nigger in a blanket That's a dessert consisting of raisins, blackberries, other dark fruit rolled up in dough. They have something called nigger news. Nigger news is what they call gossip. They have something that they call nigger in the woodpile. Nigger in the woodpile is when you're trying to cover something up. So let's say someone who wasn't married had a baby back in the day. That was considered to be something that gave your family a lot of disrespect. So people would try to hide it from folks. And what people would say, oh, I heard this person's got a nigger in the woodpile. It's not the color of the baby, but it's the fact that they have something that they're not supposed to have. They have something called nigger it, to labor or endure in privation in the manner of a black slave. So let's say you were working out and you were doing some lunges with some 45-pound weights, and you weren't able to do it. You weren't able to do all of the reps. Somebody would say, oh, you know, you're going to nigger it. You need to nigger it. In other words, they used to think that our skin complexion, especially the darker you were, actually made us stronger. They thought that darker complected people had the ability to work outside more, were physically stronger. Light complected slaves who were sold to be, you know, to work, make shoes, work on bridges, to use your brain. So there was a belief that the complexion that you had actually dictated the type of intelligence or physical ability that you actually had. So to nigger it, to be able to deal with it. Then they had something called niggerish, which is shiftless, no account. That's an adjective. So you actually kind of niggerish today. Nigger luck, unexpected or undeserved good fortune. So if you find 20 bucks on the ground, they would say, oh, that's nigger luck. Nigger egg, that's a black bowling ball. Nigger brand, that's the noun. That's what they call a saddle sore from a horse. Nigger chaser, that's a firecracker. Nigger gin is inferior gin. Nigger golf, that's a game of craps. Nigger ham is watermelon. Nigger heaven, when they had segregated seating in theaters where black people had to sit up at the top, that's what they called nigger heaven. Nigger work, menial or degrading employment. Then they have something called niggardly, which niggardly, which is an adjective, reluctant to spend, stingy, miserly. So if you are a person who gives a person a quarter as a tip, someone would say that you're acting either niggardly or niggardly, and they are saying that that is a characteristic of Black people, people of African descent, being stingy. And then you have the word denigrate. The word denigrate comes from the word deniger, or to Black. So when you put someone down, you're saying that this person is somewhat like a Black person. And I'm gonna tell y'all why I'm telling y'all this. We have become the prototype of a stock of inferior people in the world. That's been going on for hundreds of years. People put a lot of work into that. That's why I said, you think individually as people yourself that you can take the power out of the word, not knowing that. You don't know about that history, man. There are people out there that believe things about us because of what they see on TV and what they have been told. Not only that, people believe things about us because of what is left out, what is excluded. I remember sitting in class, and every class I went to where they talked about the founders and the great people and the sailors and the who invented this, I never saw a Black person anywhere, nowhere. Now we know that's not true, but we're not put in the curriculum. So by simply not putting the truth in the curriculum, and on top of that, you have all of these stories and stuff that's passed down by people, what's shown in the movies, what's shown in the news. We are supposed to be the prototype for an inferior stock of people. So the Irish, who the English hated, were called niggers turned inside out and sand niggers. People in the so-called Middle East, I'm sorry, they were called white niggers and niggers turned inside out. People in the so-called Middle East were called sand niggers, niggers from the sand. So I'm going to call you something inferior, but because we already have a model of human beings that are the worst in the world, more like animal-like than anything, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in a status similar to them. So nigger is not something that is just a word, whether you say nigger or nigga. There's a lot of backing to that. People used to preach sermons to kids in church, and they would say that these people are the cursed people. They are descendants of the curse. They looked at the story of Noah. Y'all know how influential preachers are. How many people question preachers? Here you are sitting there listening to a sermon. A preacher is preaching a sermon, and the preacher actually says that these people were cursed by God. So Noah got drunk, and one of his sons started laughing at him. He got mad, and he cursed him. And what they would say in church, which it does not say in the Bible, they would say he changed his skin from white to black. That was the curse. So they said that we were the descendants of the curse people. And then when we tried to do regular stuff like run away from plantations and stuff, what you're supposed to do when you're captured, they said that they were symptom of a mental disorder called drapetomania, the insane desire to abscond, to run away. You ain't supposed to run away from a plantation. Then if you got mad and you started breaking some tools because somebody sold your wife off of your kid, you were angry, they said you suffered from dysesthesia Ethiopis, a mental disorder. So when I look at television today and I see how Black people are portrayed, I'm just seeing a continuation of what's been going on for hundreds of years. Us regular folks that are sitting right here, we're not gonna have cameras in front of our faces. They're not gonna come interview us, talk to regular people that, you know, have families and stuff together. My dad's been with me my whole life. What's the image of Black men? We don't take care of our kids. We don't have PhDs. I've never had a person in my life come to me and say, hey, I know it's not a whole lot of y'all, and I'm not making this about me, I'm not. This is just an example, because I don't like a lot of attention anyway. But nobody's ever gonna come interview me and ask me how I did it. Now, if I got in some trouble up here at school, it'd be cameras out here everywhere trying to catch me to go to my car. But they don't come. So people who have studied media have said that when it comes to us, we are consistently shown in a way that produces three different types of stereotypes. Either we're athletes, we are criminals, or we are entertainers. And that's what people think. That's what people think. So our image has been taken control of for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. And it's still like that now. So when YG came out with his song, Stop Snitching, to Tekashi 6ix9ine, this brother, that right there, that video was interesting. I showed that in class. So you got a song that's 2 minutes and 37 seconds long. YG said nigga 107 times in that song. 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And you ask yourself, what other words did you say? What else did you have time to say? So he was calling Tekashi 6ix9ine out for supposedly, allegedly, snitching on some people. But he put it in the context of a slave plantation where you have Blacks who are sitting there on a plantation and they're working, and they compared Tekashi 6ix9ine to the Black who would tell whites that we're going to run away, tell master we're going to run away. I understood the comparison, but they have a young Black male sitting there just over and over and over again, using that word. That to me was one of the craziest looking things I've ever seen. So he's trying to make a point, but he's doing it in the context of our trauma. Very, very interesting, man. Very interesting. So anybody want to jump in here? I've been talking for a while. I'm sure some people got some things to say.
Oh, Tatiana, you go, girl. Oh, we have one more person joining too. Hey.
Just going back on the media side of it and how we are portrayed, even though he has become very controversial in the last few years, The Cosby Show, I
Oh, yeah.
feel, was a great representation of successful Black people. He was a doctor and OBGYN and the mom a lawyer. And I think we definitely need more of that. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of, because you're right, we're all athletes, we're all entertainers, we're all this, we're all that. We're not portrayed as like dentists or doctors or, you know, people who have PhDs and went to school, and, you know, we all always get discovered off our talent, which, yes, great, but we are just so much more than that. And I know my mom she works for the Delta Dental of Washington, and she has very few, but that's not because there aren't Black people applying. It is just within the business, but she has Black friends who are dentists and doctors and business analysts and do tech and know how to write code, and they're just so smart. And it's like, why don't we see more of that?
Yeah.
Like, why are we scared of that, really? It's very interesting, because I mean, for me, when me and my husband do have children, they are going to be colored, and I want them to watch movies where they're not just gang banging and going to jail, or what, Fruitvale Station. That movie is so sad. Based on a true story, I understand, but it is so sad that it actually happens. But it's just, I want more of the Cosby Show. I want more of these successful Black families, not just, you know, Lizzie McGuire and all these different things where it's mainly all the white people are in higher positions. Because obviously, yes, but it is also evident that Black people can dominate. And it is very frustrating not seeing that as often. And, you know, it's very, I can't think of the word, but it kind of, you know, makes you not want to, you don't see yourself in that position as a child. So you don't really go for it, because it's like, oh, that's not what I'm supposed to do. I see these blonde-haired, blue-eyed people doing it. That's their job. I'm supposed to be the server. I'm supposed to be the dishwasher. I'm supposed to, you know, all these things that we just see too often. And, you know, the movies like 12 Years a Slave and Django, like, they're very historical, and, you know, yes, that is where we come from, but we are so much more than that. And I wish we wouldn't only portray Black people movies as that. Like, when it's Black History Month and they're all that selection of films, it's trauma. And it's just like, yes, we get it, but we are so, like, Rainey's over here trying to be a lawyer. Like, where's that movie? I'm trying to watch that. So, you know.
I was gonna say, Tatiana, I feel like it comes down to like that history thing of like, society has always tried to make Black people feel inferior and believe in themselves that they're inferior. I feel like that's what it comes down to a lot of the time.
Yes.
Ajala had something.
My grandma wanted to say something.
Basically, I was just going to say that we actually have we are the ones that are the trendsetters. Black folks, simple as that. No matter how you try to paint the picture, if it were not for Black folks, all the other BIPOC, and actually, I don't even like to say BIPOC, because I don't like to, for me, I like to separate and be clear. It's Black, and then there's people of color. So I think it's really important to understand that we are the trendsetter. I think it's important to understand that the majority of inventions that people use today were created by Black people. And it's imperative to understand your history in order to know your future.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was James Baldwin. He always talks about how history is now. And like I keep seeing that with all the like African studies classes I'm taking, I just keep seeing that history is literally now, like it's happening now. We're still like people always talk about how far we progressed, but you still see all the stains of our history affecting everything today. So yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
I also wanted to go off of what Tatiana, I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong, and then Rainey's. It all comes down to like media representation too, because there is a lot of like Black lawyers, Black dentists, and etc., but they don't get enough attention as, you know, white dentists, white lawyers. And I think about like 3 years ago, we just got a new Black lawyer. I think her name's Chanel. Forgot her last name. It's very long. But she didn't get a lot of media representation. Nobody knew who she was. And she works at Spokane County downtown. And it was just super sad because then there was another lawyer who came all the way from Oklahoma, I think. And she, of course, she was white. And she was in the newspaper. She was just blasted everywhere. Like even people at school, when I went to school in Spokane, like talked about it. And so it just all comes down to like media representation too. And like what the media wants to put out or what people want to see, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like, and the most common theme in the media right now is everyone using the N-word. It's in all of our music and everything. So it's like, I feel like, yeah, I could, looking at it from that perspective, Dr. O, because I read your article, obviously, but the way you put it as like, it's like an identity, that makes like a lot of sense to me. And it seems like that's what people need to start realizing if anything about like how we use it is like going to change.
Yeah, because somebody could actually make the argument and say, okay, well, wow, after all this time, we found out that the word nigger, or whether you say nigga, means black. Well, what's the problem? That should make it better. Well, then you have to ask yourself about the word black. So we're so unconscious of it that we use it in the language. When you go back and you look at England, what you will find is that their culture was centered around separating the meaning of black and white in their culture. So for them, before they came into contact with people of African descent, white itself, the color white, had a certain connotation of meaning. To them, it meant God. It meant purity. It was their standard of beauty. The more beautiful you are, it was very pale complexion, light eyes, light hair, pure goodness. Black for them represented stain, soil, dirty, devil, evil. You think about the witches. The good witches wear white, the bad witches wear black. You think about weddings, you think about funerals. You think about the little white lie. That's the one that won't get you in as much trouble. Telling a little white lie. You think about being blackballed, the 8-ball, the black sheep of the family, being blackmailed. When the stock market crashed, whatever day it is, they'll call it black something. We use these words very unconsciously. So what they did in the colonies, because these were dominant English colonies, was they began to take and call us Negro, which means black. But because of the backing of what these words, because of what these words intrinsically mean in their culture, you're not just talking about skin complexion. It was never meant to be skin complexion. They were attaching what black meant in their culture, is what they were saying. They were attaching, because if you go back and you study the documents, what you will find is that they were referring to people by their ethnicity at first, of European descent. So if you were Irish or English or whatever you were, that's what they called you. So why in the world did they start using the term white? People in Europe today don't call themselves white. There's only been a few places in the world they use that. So white has a certain set of meanings to it. Even in our brains, it has a certain set of meanings. And when they call themselves white, it was not just about physical appearance, skin complexion. So they created two opposing ideas. You are the Negroes. You are the Negars, the Niggers, the Nigers. You're the black people. You're the color. You're the darkies. Everything means black. So you're the evil people. And we are the white people. So what they did was they used that term politically to solidify European group European ethnic groups with each other as white. But also it was backed by the English culture as being pure and beautiful is what happened. So when we use these terms, sometimes I mess people up. I'll say, hey, you trying to whitemail me? And they'll look at me because I'm not talking about a person. I see, I see you over there, Grandma. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to retrain my way of thinking to not use that word in that way. I'm not talking about a person. I don't think all white people are bad. I'm not talking about that. But because I know how I was taught and how we unconsciously use these words, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to retrain myself the way I think. Because I don't know about you all. I know I have been impacted at times in my life about the way that Black people are shown in the media myself. Man, I mean, I went through a phase as a young Black male where I got into a few fights and I thought I was hard and tough and, you know, started trying to live up to this expectation is what I did. But, you know, that's not something that stayed with me, but certainly, do you all think you all are impacted by that? Any of the younger people in here? How does that stereotype of being Black and being thuggish or being unintelligent? Because we used to actually, the guy named Warren that did well in school, we used to say he acted like a white boy. Now think about that. How can I be so brainwashed knowing the schools that existed in Gayo, in Jane, in West Africa, that even Europeans came to study? Some of the textbooks that were used, one scholar wrote over 40 books. They're still translated today. But I've been so miseducated about who I am as a person, not knowing that there were people that were taken into slavery that were out trying to make paper from trees to come back and teach in their schools, where you had to go to training for 40 years to become a teacher in those schools in West Africa. Nobody ever taught me that. You're not supposed to teach the descendants of slaves anything about that. That's why, in my opinion, why during Black History Month, they don't go past slavery. Think about it. When have you ever learned anything about Africa? There's no continuity at all. I'm gonna stop you right here. So when you have Black people saying something out of pure ignorance, like, I know that slavery was wrong, but at least they got us out of Africa and gave us Christianity. That's what you hear Black people saying. That is a consequence of people being oppressed who don't know any different, just like with us using the word nigga itself. So here I am in school, and there's a brother that's doing well, and we ostracize him so much. So we have made being intelligent and white a synonym, the same thing. So people who did well in school who were Black, either you tried to hide it from people or you simply didn't deliberately kind of sabotage yourself from how well you're doing in school. That is a symptom of our trauma. That is a symptom of our trauma. So we need people who are trained as therapists who know this kind of stuff to help us deal with this stuff, man, because in this wonderful book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, the professor who actually came here from Portland State to talk about it, Dr.O, I happened to be at a conference in Las Vegas presenting about post-traumatic slave syndrome. And would it not be a coincidence that she came to the school to speak about post-traumatic slave syndrome and I wasn't even here? Yeah, that was something. But anyway, she signed the book for me. I was really happy about that. But she talks about how a lot of our behavior is connected to our oppression. Very fascinating. And this is not something that is just a theory. It can be proven by DNA. When people experience trauma, especially in high doses, your body releases a chemical called cortisol. And the more trauma that you're exposed to, the more cortisol that's released. And it almost becomes like a dopamine, like high. You feel almost like a high. I don't know if you've ever been around people that just love seeing fights and violence and gunshots and stuff like that. That's cortisol. So think about some of the traumas our people went through. Now you may say to yourself, how in the world is it passed down? It's passed down through the placenta of women into unborn children that they're pregnant with. What does a child who is filled with cortisol, excess cortisol, what do they behave like? I don't know, but I'm just saying these are the kind of things that we need to be looking into for people who are trained. So it can be proven that trauma affects your pattern of behavior, the decisions that you make, but also it affects our DNA, as well. It can also be proven as well. So we're not having these discussions in the context of historical oppression. We don't talk about that. A lot of us think because we're making money that we're okay. Man, look, if you think that money can cure mental illness or can improve your mental health, you need to talk to people that's got money. I know people that's got money. It does not. You can do more crazy stuff with money than you can without. It does not improve your mental health at all. It does not. It gives you more access to stuff that you ain't got no business doing, or that's unhealthy. So please don't do that. Anybody else have anything to say? We stop at 8, right? Got about 20 minutes, 18 minutes.
Yeah, we don't have to stop exactly at 8, but that's what I was hoping for. Like if we have to end early, it's all good. But I was just gonna say, yeah, I feel like we do internalize a lot of things, because I got that argument a lot when I was in middle school and high school. Well, not really middle school, because I didn't really have the best grades in middle school, no lie. But like in high school, when I did start getting good grades, I would get clowned on like all the time, and people would say I'm acting white, or like even just me as a person, like how I act. They would always say that and stuff. So yeah, it's crazy, because then I would like stop like sharing about like my good grades and stuff, because I was like embarrassed about it. And like it's crazy how people, like society can make you feel like that, like you're not supposed to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You
Thank you. I appreciate this, this whole discussion. And it just makes me think deeper. Thank you for bringing up post-traumatic stress syndrome.
So,
It just took me back. It really took me back to when I seen her and she talked about some of her experiences, personal experience in the grocery store, in Africa, in different places. So thank you for Dr. Joy.
You're welcome.
But I think really, and I'm not going to say what it boils down to, because I know that it's a lot, right? There's all types of pieces to this puzzle that has not been able to be connected correctly. But I think it starts, one, with self-hate. Two, part of, I think, our trauma as a people is because we have been taught light skin, dark skin, good hair, bad hair, inferior, who's better, all of that plays a role in how we interact with one another, who can be in the front office, and who works in the back, it's just real like that. But I think when we talk about oppression, and we talk about self-doubt, and we talk about lack of loving one another, that is really imperative for us to be a community of caring. Because when you're about that community of caring, then you're going to focus and try to make a difference in a positive way and be a beacon of light to one another. So I think, once again, it goes back to understanding our history, being able to let go, forgive, not forget, but forgive, be able to embrace one another. And until we heal ourselves, you can't say, well, let me reach out to this person over here. Because you got to take care of you over here in order to be able to take care of the person over there.
Thank you.
Dr. O, I also had a question. So I know we had this whole discussion, and you were saying like there's probably no way to like have everybody like stop saying it. So is there like a solution like to that, or is it just kind of like something we have to like deal with? Because I mean, it isn't like all rap music and stuff, so I feel like everyone's going to continue to say it. But yeah, I just wondered your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Let's see. I want to share something with you first. One of the things I have been thinking about is the generational thing that happens. I know my parents saw me breakdancing, wearing box haircuts with steps and parts. Y'all probably look at me now like, how'd you get that big bald head? I never really had a box. I didn't realize you had to have a more narrow face to do it. So when I look back at my pictures now, I just crack up laughing because I'm like, man, all this trends are so powerful that I was wearing this haircut, even though I didn't have the type of head that was suitable for that. It seems like each generation is going to push the envelope a little bit more with things. I know my mom said that about us. Her mom said that about her children, and the list goes on. So the influence of rap music and what the sister was saying right here so beautifully about the influence of our of us being trendsetters is actually true. People have figured that out. You know, that's a good way to make money, you know, because we are definitely and I'm not saying that arrogantly. I'm not saying that nobody else does anything. I'm not saying that like I'm, you know, in any kind of way of superiority. But when you see McDonald's French fries breakdancing and all kind of stuff, you know, I mean, you definitely, because you can see this stuff spread. When I go to games at Eastern, when I go to soccer games or whatever, you hear rap music. I don't hear country music anymore. I don't hear those kind of songs. When I see white people dancing now, they doing our dances, same dances. And it does not matter where they come from. They don't have to grow up around Black people. They're imitating this. So what happened was from 1979 to 1999, there was a big difference. There was a big trend that happened with the sale of rap music. From 1998 to 1999 or 1997 to 90, it was 1 year. There was a 31% increase in the sale of rap. 31 in one single year. So 79 to 99. It was either 98, 99, or 97, 98, 31%. While the whole other music industry as a whole had like a 9% increase. Who were the people that was buying it? It was white people. They buy the music. They're the ones that's listening to it. And because we are saying this word nigga so much, they're hearing this. It's really something that has influence. And because of our confusion, we are actually calling this stuff culture. I told you, it is not culture. This is an indication of your mental health. The term Hispanic, there's no such thing as a Hispanic person. That goes back to when Cristobal Colon, who you call Christopher Columbus, ended up in the Caribbean, lost, and told the people on his ship, sign this piece of paper, because if you tell anybody that we did not go to Asia, we're gonna cut your tongue out. That's what he made the crew say. The first place they landed that they wanted to claim for themselves, they call one place Isabella after the queen, and another place they call Hispaniola. Hispaniola, I can't remember the whole term, but it meant the Spanish island, is what it means. Only thing Hispanic means is that you speak Spanish, but it's not your true human identity. Spain went everywhere, conquered a bunch of people. There's no such thing as a Hispanic. What are these people's cultures? There's the same thing, difference between somebody from Puerto Rico, somebody from a different country in South America, you know, an Indian. That also comes from Cristobal Colon or Cristoforo Colombo and the boys. They like calling that part of the world the West Indies. There's no such thing as an Indian, and people didn't call themselves Indian. You have people who are imposing labels on people that they want to impose, and they create a mythic, a portrait of themselves while showing us in ways to where we're more like animals. So yeah, we get confused along the way. And I told you, the further that you get away from your root, the more confused that you become. So listen at this young white guy. He self-identifies as a 19-year-old gay white male. When I was doing this study, one of my students told me that her friend is white and says nigger like every 2 or 3 words. And she showed me one of his texts. Oh my goodness. I just could not believe how much this guy was saying. So I said, hey, find out why he thinks it's okay to say it. So this is his quote from a text. I say nigger because it has been a term of endearment. Notice how he using that language, repeating after us, between myself and all of the people I grew up around. It was part of the slang I became accommodated to. I grew up with mostly Hispanic and Black friends. My friends were my home growing up because my home life was abusive. I feel like even though I am white, I felt less out of place with my childhood friends than I did with a lot of white people I knew growing up. My life in general just felt like it was more relatable to the people I chose to be around. I'm not Black, nor do I claim to be, but it has simply become part of the way I talk over the years. Nobody has ever looked at me different. I just felt like it was normal. It just really clicked with all close friends over the years, unquote. So there are 2 major influences. It's us telling people they can say it, and then it's rap music. And because it's more white people that listen to rap music now, and because we say it, you're gonna have people that say it. So this stuff about our trauma has actually turned into pop culture, which is amazing to me. So just like the sister was saying about trend setting, this is one thing that I really wish was not a part of the trend setting, because what has being set as a trend is a discussion that we used to have among ourselves about our identity. And it's a part of our collective trauma as a group of people. How you identify yourself as a group of people, that's a part of our collective trauma. So because it's a part of pop culture has such a strong influence. It is amazing when you're growing up. You think about the trends that come along with clothes. I never in a million years thought I would ever see people going back to tight basketball shorts. If you go back and look at people who played in the 60s and the 70s, I almost looked like they were wearing spandex shorts. And they were really short, like they was at the strip club or something. And then when Jordan came along, you got the big baggy shorts. That's what everybody started wearing. And I went to a basketball game and I'm looking, and these people had on tight shorts again. I said, what? I never thought I would see that, but the trends, they keep changing. So it's 2 things I think that happen. Our collective trauma, unfortunately, has been recorded in the music. And because white people listen to it more, they're getting that influence. And then you got Black people who are confused, telling people they can say it. That's one thing. But another thing that I think happened is that the younger people who go through this stage of kind of like rebelliousness or pushing the envelope, I think that this stuff is inviting. You think about it. Are you going to do the same thing at age 35 that you did at age 17? I hope not. When I was young, I was much more daring. I was always looking for something to kind of push the envelope a little bit. Whether it was the music I was listening to, the clothes I was wearing, who I was hanging around. You're not planning for your future. You just out kind of trying to find yourself something that's fitting, something that's fun. So all younger people seem to go through that. Now it seems like younger people are grasping. Man, when you turn on World Star Hip Hop, and Tatiana, I know you know what I'm about to say. Everybody's calling themselves niggas when they get in fights. World Star Hip Hop. Everybody. It could be 6 white boys in the middle of a rural area about a red barn. And they will get into a fight. And while they're fighting, they are saying, F you nigga, you know, F you nigga, just call each other niggas. It does not matter where they are, it's people saying that. The Latinx community are calling each other niggas when they fight. People in different countries call each other niggas. So it's just amazing to me. To me, that's not a reflection of that. You can call that pop culture, but that's not true, authentic Black or African culture. That is our trauma that people are messing with, and they're using that in a way to combat with each other, calling each other niggas like that. Because it's interesting to me, when people would come around and lynch us and hang us, what words do y'all think that they would use when they were shouting out how they disliked us? They would call us niggas. Hang this nigga up. That's how they use it. I'm saying we use that in tense moments with each other when we actually are starting to fight. People are doing that same thing. So as far as I'm concerned, those of you who think that that is cultural appropriation, that ain't got a damn thing to do with culture. That is trauma appropriation, if you want to call it something. That ain't got nothing to do with our culture. Now, you can make the argument, like I said, that ending it in an A goes back to our culture with the language patterns, yeah. But just embracing that word as a term of your identity or something like that, no, that's a part of our trauma. So I know it's almost 8 o'clock. To me, we are displaced people. We haven't, public schools were never designed to teach us. The movement going on now, I just met somebody who was a professor in Oklahoma. I know from going to public schools, and I know you all going, they don't teach anything about Black people. A little paragraph about slavery, little paragraph about this. You don't hear anything. So that's why I wanted to be white when I was a kid, because I was confused. That's why my niece and nephew wanted to be white. There was nothing that I saw that reflected anything good about us. So I was confused. But I met this lady at a conference in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and she told me she's from Oklahoma, and they had already passed one stage successfully of passing a law about that. Any teacher in Oklahoma, this is what the professor told me, that says anything about race or gender that is beyond the curriculum, and we all can agree that what's in the curriculum is probably gonna be about that much, it's supposed to be fined. Y'all ready for the amount? $25,000. Not 2,500, not 250, 25,000. That's what she told me. She teaches in Oklahoma.
And they
also,
probably don't get paid that much in Oklahoma.
I know, and she said that some of their salaries are $30,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So what you got to do to be historical, I have a little book here called Walker's Appeal. David Walker wrote something and got it published in 1827 where he was encouraging Blacks to not accept slavery. He didn't say go out and kill white people, but he was like, look, we cannot accept that. We have to organize and move against that. This was for Black people and white people to read. David Walker was Black. Do y'all know that any Black person that got caught carrying this book will be killed on the spot, burned alive, dismembered, hung, whatever it was, shot up to death? You are not supposed to advocate for your freedom. You're not supposed to advocate for social action, social justice. You're not supposed to do that. What is going on today with this movement against teaching this kind of stuff in schools? It's the same thing, but we don't see ourselves as historically oppressed people, so we don't know that what's going on. As far as I'm concerned, this is going to have to be something that comes from our communities. I never expect public schools to be able to do this. They're not going to do it right. Don't expect it at all. Anybody else have anything they wanted to say in closing? Because I know I don't want to go too long, but that's just what I wanted to say. You have to study your history, man. The word psychology itself comes from a country in North Africa. It's a white scholar that talked about this and wrote about this. The word psyche is the root word of psychology. The word psyche itself comes from a North African word called the saku. The Greeks adopted it because they were always going to our schools. Nobody taught me that. So I got to go out and buy Black studies books to find out stuff that I'm not learning in school, the saku. A whole bunch of stuff out there that we don't know about. Hippocrates, the Hippocratic Oath. He learned from texts that were written and influenced by a short, bald-headed Black man in North Africa called Imhotep, that the movie The Mummy made into some type of crazy-looking dust cloud, whatever he was. He said, I'm a child of Aesculapius. That's what they call Imhotep in Greece. Imhotep had been dead for over 1,000 years. So when you become a doctor and you take the Hippocratic Oath, Hippocrates himself paid homage to where he got a lot of his information from, which was a Black man. So the information is out there. And this is not about trying to tell people that you are superior to other people. It's just about you loving yourself. I got white friends. I'm very close with. I got one of my best friends is white, and his 3 daughters, they call me uncle. I go see them. I love them to death. Pick them up. They're in high school. One of them is in college. So I don't go around looking down on people because I have pride in who I am as a person. I do not. But it helps me with my identity, who I am as a person and how I should be behaved. So anyway, it's a whole lot more that could be said, but anybody else got any closing thing that they want to say?
Really quick, I wanted to say one point on the like whole rap culture aspect of it. I remember in BSU, I think Ajala, I think you brought it up, saying that like maybe if like major influencers like rappers and stuff were to say like, oh, we shouldn't be saying the word, then like it would have to be like a collective thing for like everybody to stop saying it, because they were like, you know, they're the trendsetters, like everyone's saying. But like it's going to be really hard to get everyone to collectively agree on that. So it kind of sucks because like there's still going to be like people coming from that like uneducated place that just want to say it so bad, and I just don't get why. It's like, because I mean, like everyone said, it's been in our vocabulary, but like it's really not that hard if you try to like remove something like from your vocabulary, especially if you know like the meaning behind it. Ajala.
I'll wait till you're done. My fault. Oh, you're done? Oh, okay. I just like wanted to elaborate on the point she brought up too as well. Like I feel like when it comes to like, let's say like the process of dismantling like the N-word, for example, like I feel like it's like not a multi-step process, but I feel like there's 2 stages to the process. Like one, we have to like come together as like Black people and just figure out like what it is that like we need to do individually, and then we need to move however we're going to move, however we decide what that is. And then for when it comes to other people using the N-word, then I feel like that's a totally different, not a totally different issue, but I feel like that's the next issue to deal with, if that makes sense. Because like I'm trying to remember back to the meeting when I brought, actually never mind, that's all I gotta say for that yet.
Y'all keep doing that. I'm gonna grab a book right quick because we were dealing with solutions. I wanted to just show you something right quick. I'll be right back.
Thank you, Dr.O. I was going to say that makes sense though, because we need to focus on ourselves first. And kind of what your grandma was saying, it's hard because we're always so divided in our community. And like, we really need to just get on the same page. And like, we divide ourselves based on skin color, based on class, based on like all these things. And like, I feel like, yeah, that's a major issue why we can't get like a collective movement going a lot of the time, because we're also divided a lot. I don't know, anybody else want to speak on anything that was said?
I do. I really, really, really am encouraging all of you to get a Twitter so we can all follow each other and do the spaces, because like literally, okay, bye, thank you for coming. We always enjoy your presence. Thank you. Anyway, I really think we should all get a Twitter and do that, because the whole being divided thing, for whatever it is an issue within itself. And we do have to come together first before we can start doing all these other things. Because if full Black people aren't seeing me as a Black person, even though my dad is Black, that's a problem. how are we supposed to come to any type of solution for whatever it is if you don't see me as equal? Like, you are literally seeing me as less than, and that doesn't make sense because people see you as less than. So why are you putting, like, that just doesn't make sense. So if we all can, you know, hop on this spaces thing and we start, because the topic comes up right there, and people, Black people will see, oh, you know, they're talking about mixed races are Black, or like everyone, we all need to come together, or this topic is, you know, whatever. We can get so many more people than just this, because again, like we need to come together first before we can even start on any solution of any type, you know. So, you know, in the next month, I'm really hoping you guys sign on up. It's very easy. And, you know, follow me. I think I'm like Ty Elliott 22. I don't even know. But I'll let you guys know on the Instagram. So, yes.
Especially going off of like the trendsetter topic, I feel like if we do come collectively, I feel like everybody else would be like, oh, they're doing it, so we should start doing it. Because that does happen in the Black community. The Black, it's like there's this thing going on with sticky bangs. A white woman saw edges and wanted to redo it as like sticky bangs, which is really crazy to me.
That's
so
a laugh
like
out loud.
So people do like hop on the trend, or, you know, in sad cases, in most cases, they take the trend and try to make it their own. So like if we do come as a collectively and kind of try to stop saying the N-word, or try to have these, you know, interracial relationships conversation, mixed conversation that mixed people are Black, I feel like other people would understand and not hop on the trend, but also hop on the topic too. Like, hey, like I heard about this, we should stop saying that, because mixed people are Black, no matter what, you know, skin tone they are, they're still Black. I just wanted to say that.
Anybody else? If I said something, I have a book here called Her Story, Black Female Rites of Passage. Then I have another book called Coming of Age, African American Male Rites of Passage. Naming people has been something that's been sacred. People have ceremonies around that. How you identify yourself as a group is a marker to the health of your community. So there are people out there that have been doing this for a while. And to me, like I said, if it's not organic, something that's coming from the community, because if you look now, it's very hard to get the attention of young people. And I know good sister right here knows this, because you know, the amount of attention now that are given to our little phones, I've never heard of anything that's ever been invented, any kind of drug or anything that is so consuming, such as these little phones and the information that you can get. So when Booker T. Washington was a little kid on the plantation, the people on the plantation got word that slavery ended, and all the Black people started jumping up, laughing, hugging each other, crying, saying, thank God. And all of a sudden there was this incredible silence. Nobody said anything. And the reason nobody said anything is because that's how they had been defined all their lives. They did not know where to go. When they went to the bathroom, the relationship they had with their kids, what they wore, what they would eat, everything was set into motion by somebody who controlled them. All of a sudden, now you find out that you don't have to have someone controlling you. These people did not know what to do. They did not know where to go. So the thing that was responsible for setting their lives into motion every day, so that silence, not knowing what to do, So you ask young people right now, what would you do if your cell phones got cut off for 3 days? I'll be willing to bet you that they will be sitting there just like those people on those plantations, because they wouldn't know what the hell to do. Because that stimulation constantly over and over and over again is a dopamine in your body. I don't think cell phones are bad, so please don't take this, oh, he's just some old man and doesn't know what he's talking about. I got a cell phone. I use it as a tool, but it does not define who I am as a person. It does not. I'll turn my cell phone off and won't mess with it, you know, but I use it for things that I need it for. But they're saying that it's actually even distorting the brain development of young people with your ability to focus on things, you know. So of course we see that in the class. Oh my God, I could tell you some stories about that, especially with some of these papers I created, but I'm not gonna do that. But anyway, so the reason I brought that up was not to attack cell phones, but we're not in control of the socialization of our kids anymore. Our kids their attention is fascinated and hooked in by things that are outside of our community. So I would say one of the concrete things you can do is limit the time that you give kids technology and stuff like that. You know, hour a day, 30 minutes a day, or whatever it is. They don't need all of that stuff all the time at such a young age, and be careful with that. You draw them in. Raising family at one time was supposed to be a community thing. You know, now we've gotten more into the individualistic, westernized thing. We don't have as many reunions, family reunions and stuff as we used to. For a lot of people, we've gotten away from those things. So this has to be a community effort. You can go to the school and challenge them, and I wish you the best with that. I'm not trying to say don't do it, but I don't have any faith in that at all, because America's been like this with the historically oppressed people. Poor white people don't know their story. Black people, we don't know our story. Native Americans, they don't know their story. You can just keep going on and on and on. That is not what America's supposed to do. It's not supposed to expose you to information that's going to empower you and make you aware as human beings. So anyway, rites of passage programs, it's going to be very difficult to go against the pop cultural trends, because man, I did mention this book, Hair Story. I just wanted to show you all that. That is a very, very good book. You should check that out. I also have a book up here by a Black psychologist called Visions for Black Men. Very good book when you're talking about solutions. So we need to understand the trauma. You yourself as an individual needs to deconstruct how that trauma is impacting you. I did have a brother one time in one of my classes when I was talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome. And this was in South Carolina. He was going to go out and buy some expensive rims for his truck. And after I got done talking to him about what Dr. DeGroote calls vacant esteem, she says, Black people, we don't have low self-esteem that could be improved. But because of what has happened to us, we have vacant esteem. We're empty. So that's why we get platinum teeth, or whatever the brother's name is that got the piece of diamond or whatever it is in the middle of his forehead looking like an alien or something like that. We are the ones that do that kind of stuff. And I'm not making fun. I'm just saying you have to ask yourself psychologically, when you look at a person who is presenting themselves in that way, underneath all of that, what is the bigger issue going on? I don't feel good about myself inside. I don't feel like people respect me. So I'm going to exaggerate my visibility is what I'm going to do. We need to understand about that self. You need to check yourself. That brother ended up not buying those rims. Not because I told him not to buy them. I didn't even know he was even thinking about that. You have to ask yourself, what are you doing yourself? You know, to what psychologically, how are you acting out your trauma, you know, in our communities? And we also need to try to find solutions. This is something to me that has to happen in small group pockets, because it's going to be so many people, even our own people. We defend our trauma. We defend it. We listen to it on the music. How can I stand in front of you as a professor who has committed himself to learning this stuff, not because I want people to praise me because I got some degree? It's just a degree. It's about a paycheck. But how in the world can I stand in front of you and tell young black people things that were done to us in slavery and how we were objectified, and makes you angry? And then you turn on a song by Blueface, and Blueface is sitting there talking about women. sexually and what he's going to do to him. You don't see no contradiction between that, you know? And then people will say it's just entertainment. Ain't no such thing as damn just entertainment. Do y'all know that lynching people one time was entertainment? That's why they had their kids out there in suits, food around. Like we do selfies now, they was taking pictures by people that was burned up alive and burning. They would sell pieces of liver, heart, and stuff like that for souvenirs. That was entertainment. So man, get away from me with that entertainment. You got to be more disciplined than that. What are you supporting with what you're listening to yourself? As far as I'm concerned, the melanin in our skin that makes us darker and defends us against the ultraviolet rays is also a sensor. I believe that we have the ability to tap into beats in general because of the melanin in our skin. So to say that you listen to a beat, to me, I think that's something that you're born with anyway. So you can't get away with that. What are they saying? What are they reflecting? Are they reflecting the trauma? Or are they reflecting something healing? So there's a song out there called Crazy, Krazy, by rapper KRS-One. I encourage you all to listen to that. Listen to what he's talking about. That's the kind of stuff I listen to, but that's not a part of the popular trend. So he's pretty much underground. Anybody else have anything they wanted to say? I really enjoyed this conversation. I don't want to get Raynice and Tatiana in trouble by talking too much. So I'll shut up now.
No, it's never too much. I like when they run long because it means we're having good conversation. That's the goal. But yeah, did anybody have any last thoughts for Dr. O or just to bring up in general?
Yeah, I just wanted to recommend the author in the book. So like the author is John Henry Clark, very knowledgeable. And then in the first book I read by him was the African Holocaust. And then another good book is damn, what's it called? It's called give me like 2 seconds. Finding Myself. Hold on. My Life in the Search of Africa. That's what it's called. My Life in the Search of Africa. And the African Holocaust is like pretty much like goes over just like, you know, just like when we're talking about post-traumatic slave syndrome, and like it talks about like just like the very just foundation of like pretty much just like everything we're experiencing today. It talks about who we were as a people before slavery, and then also in My Life in the Search of Africa, that talks about his journey and all the research that he did, all the reading and all that.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Somebody brought up Bill Cosby and the Cosby Show. Bill Cosby actually hired a black psychologist to make sure there was not a single stereotype presented on that show at all. And you think about how he had everybody who were parents and kids trying to do different stuff based on what was on that show. And the first network he went to, they turned him down because they said there's no way in the world this is going to be a successful show where you got a black attorney, a black doctor, and then no stereotypes. And he went to another one, and that show lasted for a long time. And that was my favorite show. Every Thursday at 8 o'clock, man, you didn't care what you were doing. You had to watch the Cosby Show. Such a big thing, man. It was heavy. I would say some comments about my thoughts about Bill and the timing of what happened to him and other stuff, but I ain't gonna do that. That'd be a personal conversation.
Any other things, guys, or is that it for today?
I would just like to thank Dr. O for joining and sharing all of his knowledge with us, because I also was very ignorant about my own history, was never taught it, and didn't have a full picture of it. And I find it difficult to even try to educate other people or explain why they can or cannot say or do certain things when I don't have the right words and the knowledge to back that up, other than I just personally feel like it's not right for some of those things. So I just like to encourage everyone, you know, when we're talking about solutions and making big changes, they start within ourselves first. Like he was saying, like we can personally stop supporting certain music and certain things on our own before we start trying to bring that to a bigger audience. We start small and just keep growing and then build off of that. But we just have to really keep educating ourselves so that we know that we're speaking the truth and point other people to that education, because like we've talked about in the past, it's not always 100% like up to us to make sure that everyone else understands where we're coming from. We can point them to the books and the different websites where you can get the information so that you don't feel like you're always trying to do this on your own. So thank you very much for being on here today and sharing with
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for being here as well, supporting your daughter and just coming out. One of the things I wanted to mention to people, I forgot, a lot of y'all don't really understand how deep this is, because some of the kind of information I'm kind of staying away from. But when I was in college, we met students who were from Africa, and they told us that when they came into America through the customs, they pulled them inside of rooms and they sat down and they showed them videos. And the videos they showed them was Black people selling drugs, Black people killing each other. And they told them, stay away from them. If you go by them, they will kill you or rob you. I did not know that those students walking around from Africa were scared to death of us, and that's why they wouldn't talk to us. I was talking to my best friend's wife earlier this year, or the end of last year. I never said anything about that to her at all. She brought that up, and she said that she met someone from Africa recently that was showing films in a room when they came across. Why in the world would people be showing films of folks in a room who are coming from Africa? And this connection with Africa has been something that's been a thorn in the side of Americans for quite some time. Malcolm X and the person who inspired him about the idea to connect the Black struggle in America with the Black struggle in Africa, which led to his assassination. You know, that's been something that's problematic. So we're more than just Black. We're more than just American. It does not mean that you hate America. I don't know where in the world this idea comes from that you cannot actually show homage and respect to your ancestors while you are living in another place. We did not come here by choice. So when you are attempting to do this, that's one of the things I want to keep in mind, that there are people who live in America who are Black, have been traveling back and forth to Africa, to the Caribbean, and they have been connecting with folks. Jamaican and all those things, those are just the names of islands. Those were folks that were taken in from Africa to those places. The Haitians, those are people that were taken from Africa. We were brought over here. We are a large group of people that are spread throughout the African diaspora, throughout the world. So when you go places, don't just look for tourist spots and the nice shoes and the nice shirts. Try to connect with people. See what tours that they give that can reconnect you with this information. So when you're trying to think about your identity, you're not just limited to stuff like nigga. You are much more than that. Your humanity as a person on this earth lies with the mother country, Africa, the home of human beings. And again, that's not about thinking that you're better than anybody. Why in the world do you think that they call Greece and Rome the classical civilization for Europe? They understand that. It's us. We don't understand that. So anyway, Nike is not our home. I'm not against Nike. I got some. I'm just saying it's bigger than that. That's not your home. You can't just pay your respects back to that.
Tatiana, you had something?
Yeah, I just want to also thank you for this. I can't even think of the word. It's been so educational, and I'm very grateful to have been able to even be a part of this. Literally just from this one Zoom session, I'm dead ass gonna seriously try my best to stop saying the N-word. I mean, especially just for me personally, because my bloodline is direct from slavery and my great grandma did die on the plantation that her parents were slaves on. It just seems I just feel so dumb kind of like just having said it, because, oh, we're taking back the power, but it really isn't even like that. And I'm so glad that I was able to learn that today. And I just told my husband, we're gonna stop today.
I'm with you, Ty, over here. I'm with you right now.
Right, like, look, I'm done. I'm over it. I'm gonna start saying brother. I'm gonna start saying sister. I'm gonna start saying king, queen. I'm gonna start saying literally anything else because that word is not meant for nobody. So
Hey, you remember Anderson .Paak's song where he talked about he said the niggas and the bitches. Y'all remember that song? I don't remember what the song is called. It's a very popular song that used to be played on the radio all the time. And I was like, oh, I like that song. And it's hard to find people that sing now because everybody's using that damn auto tune and it's driving me nuts. I'm like, can you sing? Can you not? I've been listening to this since the 80s back with Roger and Zap. I've been listening to that stuff. So anyway, what the heck was I saying?
Anderson .Paak.
Oh, Anderson. So this brother could sing. The beat was nice. I was moving, and all of a sudden he got to the part where he got to the hook, and he said, I got my niggas on one side and my bitches on, and I'm like, what? Man, why couldn't you say brothers and sisters? Why niggas and bitches? Just he's such a big influence. Why do you have to do that, man? You representing us as a group of people. I wish people would stop doing that. J. Cole, Conscious Brother, always says it. Kendrick Lamar, Conscious Brother, always says it. Even KRS-One says it sometimes. And, anyway, yeah. So I wish people would stop doing that as much, man, because it's not just a word.
It isn't. But thank you so much.
Hey, no problem. You're welcome. You're welcome. I encourage you to, read the